So Jess, as of this time of recording, we're in 2025 now. I know that 2024 was a bit of a downturn, and you were working with a number of agents through that period of time with different principles, and there's a couple of different examples of the approach to a changing market, and you coached them through that. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey of someone that handled it well and somebody that maybe didn't handle it quite so well?
Yeah, so we talk about changing markets, and 2024 was definitely one of those years, and as we're filming here, the market's definitely improving. And for 2024, and all business leaders watching this right now, they would know that there's going to be another market downturn at some point into the future. Let's talk about the business we worked across in Tasmania, Harrison Estate Agents. When we went there, sales volumes were coming off in the external market. A lot of their competitors were making less sales, and we implemented the 8 steps of the changing market toolkit. And this particular business increased their sales by over 60% in that 12-month period. And we measured it from 240 odd sales to 370. It was a massive, massive increase. So effectively what we look at inside this toolkit is looking at the vendor management part of your business. We look at how well they look at their vendor reporting, how well they give feedback back to their clients, how they look at what conversations they're having with their clients, preparing them for the changing market. When we take them through these 8 steps, we effectively initially, we get them to do a mini assessment, and it tells them the lack of systems they have, and it shows them how much reliant their business is on the external market.
Obviously, Harrison did an amazing job of implementing step-by-step, which I know you love, process, data. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe an alternative story where that didn't happen? And so we're just saying we can see the difference in the two approaches.
Yeah, so we had another client working with Dan in Geelong, and we've worked with this business off and on for probably 6 to 7 years now. And when we first went there, we implemented a lot of process, a lot of structure, and effectively a lot of those steps in that changing market toolkit. And then what happens, this happens in a lot of businesses, is all of a sudden when the marketplace turns, and we're about to probably go into this market now, when the marketplace turns and starts to go on the upward trajectory, a lot of businesses jeopardise process because they don't need to do it because the market starts to take over. And I say to businesses all the time, when the markets are going up, my 14-year-old son could probably sell a home. All he's got to do is open the door and away we go. So businesses jeopardise and stop doing the processes that help them get growth. And that's what happened to this business in Geelong. I went back there a few years later and we looked at their sales had come off, their volume had come down. And I sat down and said to the leader, what's actually happened here? You had all these great tools, you had all these great systems, and he said exactly what I knew he was going to say. We basically just become victims of the external market because the market was driving sales. So we effectively didn't hold our team accountable to do all these steps of the process. And then all of a sudden, it went back the other way and they lost agents, their sales volume come off. So effectively we had to start all over again from scratch to be able to make sure we implement those steps.
Absolutely. I can just sitting here listening and thinking of how many different parts of life this exact approach to consistency and following the right steps, works over and over with athletes, with sports people.
Yes.
Tell me now, on a longer term level, what can it look like when an agent does have this consistency and does follow these steps over and over? What type of competitive advantage does it give them?
Well, it gives them a massive competitive advantage. And I think that's the mistake, as I mentioned earlier. When markets are going great, anyone can make sales. I think those businesses who keep at the core of making sure they can hold their team accountable to effective system and process, and we're just talking about how the changing market toolkit is one of those, is that when marketplaces start to shift, whether it's up or down, in my experience, these businesses grow the market share the quickest when the market shifts because their systems and processes allow them to grow so much quicker than their competition. I think what people make the mistake of thinking is that when marketplaces are going up, we don't need to do all that work with their team. So business leaders start to detract from their team, hold them accountable to process. They might be over in Hawaii sitting on the beach having cocktails, and before they know it, things have shifted back the other way and their business just falls off a cliff. And that's what I see the big difference in between the average and great businesses.
Yeah, but that work ethic is obviously, like you say, the sort of foundation of any successful business. But what's really interesting about what you're saying is that it works even when you're doing well. Makes you work even better. When you're not doing well, it makes you work even better. So there's really no excuse not to implement a system like this. What do you think the biggest lesson was from that agency down in Geelong? If they were sitting here now being interviewed, what would they be saying?
Well, they'll be saying that they shouldn't let the agents try and dictate the performance of their business. I think that's a big mistake that a lot of leaders fall into. You have agents who start to perform really well and do great numbers, and before you know it, they're effectively calling the shots and they're effectively saying what they do or don't want to do. And then what happens then is when you start to bring new team members into your team, they end up instilling the same habits. And before you know it, you've got a whole team who are reactive, choosing to do what they do or don't do. So I think the role of a great leader is to be able to hold your team accountable to process.